Hi, everyone. My name is Sheila. Welcome to another episode of Go Deeper with GBLOC. As many of you know, I am the GBLOC community and program director. I'm here today with one of our GBLOC members, Suzanne Knight. She's the CEO and founder of mBolden Consulting, which drives bold strategy and agile change. She is also a keynote and TEDx speaker, angel investor, and the co-founder of Be Uninterrupted, helping women avoid career interruptions. Welcome, Suzanne. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Sheila. Such a pleasure to be chatting with you and part of GBLOC.
Great. So I can't wait to dive in with you. So why don't we start with this? Tell us your why. What do you consider to be your purpose? Or you can say mission in the world, and what experiences in your life has shaped that?
So I think of myself as a change maker, and it's so interesting that even before I realized my greater purpose around helping women be uninterrupted, I've always been in the domain of change. So I started off with doing a master's of industrial organizational psychology and working in change management in organizations, and then as a big firm consultant for about a decade. I went into industry where I was an executive leading transformation, again, very much corporate lens. But the whole time I was doing that in my personal life, I was creating change in my community, social change and impact. I was involved in advocacy. I hosted a Ukrainian family in my home for 4 months. I would do compensation adjustments for women on my team, making sure that they were paid fairly. I've always done this. And I think it was only when I took time away from my regular life, attending a conference called Commonwealth Study Conference. And I actually recommend anyone in GBLOC, please look into this and contact me if you want to talk about my experience. But it took me out of my day job for 2.5 weeks. I was traveling across Canada with a group of 17 people from 11 different countries, part of a group of 300 people from 35 Commonwealth countries. And it just reminded me that I could do more, that I could do bigger things. And a lot of the work I was doing in my corporate career that had felt so important and transformational felt really different when I started looking at global population migration, at climate change, opportunities for multilateralism, opportunities to create equality. I just realized I needed to do something differently. And that led to the consulting side where I work around the world. I am a global consultant, and I'm able to create change across industries with leaders who are looking to make their organization work differently and better with values at the core, and to found Be Uninterrupted that is focused on pay and gender equality, one woman at a time, by helping her be uninterrupted.
Incredibly inspiring. Thank you for sharing that. And so based on what you just shared with us, what would you consider your one big idea to be? And why? Why is it important? And what do you think? What would you think the world would look like if more people adopted it?
And so I think a lot about systems, and this is actually a common thread across my consulting life, helping companies work better, and across Be Uninterrupted, helping women navigate their careers differently, where they'll create impact for themselves in terms of pay and equality. I think it's about saying when systems are aligned around values at the core with shared outcomes, amazing things can happen, magic can happen. And that's where it's so hard, because getting disparate perspectives connected around a common objective is really difficult. And that's where I like to play my why is I want to create positive benefit in the world, in organizations, for women, for other groups that would benefit from support. And my area of being able to create that benefit is from connecting the systems around a common goal that is values-based, that will create impact.
And so what are the ways in which you cultivate meaningful connections. And how does your big idea play into that?
I think of myself as a super connector. And it's funny because I never heard that term until recently, but I realized I spend a ton of my time with people trying to understand their motivation and what they need, what would actually help them achieve their aspirations, whether it's career-wise, whether it's with family, whether it's life or values, whatever it is. I try to understand what's important to them. And I am an empath. I am always thinking about other people for good or for bad. That's just the way I am. And I do think of that super connection as the way that I can make things better for people by connecting one to another where I see common aspirations, or where I actually see a gap that one person can fill for another. And I do the same for groups. I do the same for companies. It's not unusual for me to connect my consulting clients to each other, where one is really strong in an area that another has a need, or where one is starting a transformation that another one has actually hit a critical mass or area of success on. That's something I'm really good at, and it's something that I enjoy, and I know I create impact professionally, socially, personally by making those right, smart connections when they need to happen.
Do you have a favorite connection story that you would be open to sharing with us?
Sure. Well, I can think of a number of really great connections that have actually resulted in impact and people getting together to make change. I made an introduction last year to two people who have very different profiles, very different areas of contribution, but they ended up starting a company together that is now amazing, creating huge impact. I think that this is where when people put their minds together, it's actually really powerful when they think differently. Another one, so from Commonwealth Study Conference, I've seen connections where people in completely different countries have started collaborating on social issues and impact. For example, equality for women in Dominica and Papua New Guinea, very different places, but shared need for women to be treated fairly, equally, and those two passionate people are able to make change together. So certainly I've made connections and seen connections that have led to magic.
Amazing. And so you've spoken a little bit about contributions and the contributions that you've made. What is some of the thinking that maybe goes behind you, in your contributions, in choosing like how you want to be of service? Like what draws you or what inspires you to serve or move into service around something, whatever that looks like in your world?
So Sheila, what's inspired me to move into service and really figuring out where I fit in the world started with my passions and what I was good at. Because I've had ideas over the years of things that have made me mad. And I was actually challenged by a leader at one point to say, when you're creating your personal manifesto, start with the things that you just can't deal with, the things that are in the world that make you mad, that make you frustrated, that you cannot live with, and then go through that list and solve them. And I remember creating this list, and I actually have it on my desk. And I remember thinking, there are so many areas of inequality and things that are so unfair and things that I hate that exist in this world. Famine, climate change. There are a lot of things that are terrible. But then I thought about where my unique experiences and areas of contribution could really create change and move the needle in ways that would be uniquely beneficial. Like, what's the point of me with very little experience wading into a major issue like famine when I've never worked there? I don't know that much. Yes, it makes me mad, but I compare that to something like gender equality, where I've experienced inequality. I've had 3 children in the work world. I never came back to an equivalent position. I have led major national teams where women on the team were underpaid for their contributions, and I had to adjust it, and I actually would get my hand slapped for adjusting it. There were innate first person knowledge points that I had. And then I look professionally. I have led DEI and B for Canada. I've developed regional strategies covering Canada, US, Mexico, and Latin America to create change, not just for gender, but across all areas of diversity. I have been executive advisor to women's ERGs and women's groups in corporate world. Like, I get it. I know it. I'm good at this. I have my master's degree of IO psychology. My area of study was on gender equality and about how men and women are treated differently in politics. So, like, this was the natural part that I felt I could really create change on. And then I had the opportunity with my amazing co-founder, Jessica Snow. So when we were at Walmart together, she was leading strategy. I was leading transformation services nationally. So she had a $3.5 billion strategy, which my team was working to implement. And we have very different perspectives and contributions because she's all about strategy, financials, planning, growth. And for me, I'm a solid implementer, get things done, mobilize on product, get a deliverable out the door. So when we both realized we had the shared passion, it just was too beneficial for us to walk away from. And that's when we started Be Uninterrupted. But the thinking started from what we would uniquely be good at and what we had experience in, not just the list of things that made us mad, although this was certainly on the list. Pay and gender inequality was on the list, but it was also the best one for us to tackle.
I love that. It sounds like you were really strategic and thoughtful about, what was in your control and where you best channel your time and energy, which is really important when there are like so many things that someone wants to change or offer a service in. So that's really helpful advice. I love that. So what communities are you currently part of and why? And how do they add value in your life?
Oh, this is such a good question, Sheila. So communities, I'm part of a few. So being in Toronto, I'm part of Verity Women's Club, which is a physical space. It's like an actual club. And it has really great co-working space, but also amazing speakers and thought leaders who come to speak with us. Like Catherine Switzer, first woman to run the Boston Marathon. She came to speak with us. And we get to hear about topics. Like I first learned about blockchain years ago from a speaker at Verity. So it's been really great for education. And now running my own consultant firm, I actually spend a few days a week over there as co-working, and I entertain clients there. So that's a really good space. Be Uninterrupted is a supportive community, and we're launching it as a membership organization this fall. So actively a part of that and hoping many of you will be as well. I'm so happy to be part of GBLOC because I love the global focus and that it's people who are passionate about thought leadership. I stayed in very close touch with Commonwealth Study Conference, so I'm part of the alumni organization. And that's where I so recommend people invest because it's thought leaders from around the world. And the conference has been running since the 1950s. So it's a very powerful alumni group of people who have experienced something really unique. Like it's not easy. It's traveling in a country where you are tired, you're on schedules from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. some days, just as a delegation meeting government officials, Indigenous elders, you're meeting with corporate leaders, labor leaders, you're getting to see museums, visiting the Legion. Like it's very hectic, but it's a shared experience that bonds you. And it doesn't matter which year or cohort you were in, you have that shared connection immediately. So that's very powerful. And then probably, I'm sure I'm part of more, but I'm thinking of some of the university alumni associations. So I've been part of 3 universities, Acadia, where I did my undergrad, Guelph, where I did a master's of IO psychology, and then Schulich, where I did an MBA in finance and strategy. I'm part of some of those alumni orgs, but it really depends on where I play. Like Acadia, where I did my undergrad, I feel a connection because it's this small school in Nova Scotia, and it gave me these wonderful years, like being part of this little bubble of 4,000 people in Wolfville. It was wonderful. So like if they call asking for something, I always say yes. And then I find Schulich's Alumni Association is a little more immediate, especially having done an MBA there. I find that professionally, some of the connections that I've made and either mentorship I've offered or that has been offered to me has been more effective. And then Guelph, it's a great group of thought leaders, academics, and I've hired some of them. And earlier in my career journey, they were really helpful for me as well. So mix.
That's a great diversity of groups to be a part of. And I'm sure that, or at least I'm assuming that in being in such distinct groups that you continually receive diverse perspectives on things and meet kind of very distinct people. So that's really interesting to hear. There's like academia, then there's the international piece, and there's the women's piece. So that's really fascinating. So if you could enhance these communities, what would you add? What would you like to see more of in these communities?
I would like to see more openness on economic dealing and transaction. So I love how many of these have a social element, how they have networking, how they have mentoring. But I would actually love to open up the conversation to say, you need a job? Tell me what job you need. I'll connect you with the person who can hire you. You know, you have a consulting contract? Give it to me. I'll do an amazing job for you. Your kid needs a job? Let me hire them for my firm. Right? Like a little bit more transactional to create economic strength and wealth. I think that would be phenomenal because I still think a lot of those types of dealings are done in back rooms, in bars and sports games and other areas. And not everyone has access, but a lot of people can make incredible contributions and give value. Everyone has something they can offer. And I bet within GBLOC, there are so many connections that can be made if we bring them out to the open and actually ask for what we want. And part of this can be when you're going through a negotiation for your job, talk to the people and actually be open. Like, what are those people in similar roles being paid? How is their contract structured? Like, let's start talking about that thing because rising tide raises all ships. And I think that communities should foster that.
I love that. I'm in agreement with you. I think we don't talk enough about the economics of doing business and the power of doing business within communities, and especially where there is already trust inherently built. So I really appreciate that. So are there any types of contacts or connections you're looking for right now?
Yes. Well, I would love keynote speaking gigs. I just got back from a great one in Korea. It was my first time in Seoul. I spoke at the Consumer and Retail Forum on AI in retail, and it was very well received. I did a talk in London not so long before that, and then I've done quite a few across Canada. So if anyone's looking for a speaker, whether it is inspiring, motivational, or something very specific, educational on leadership, embracing agility and being more adaptable in your work, or anything about consumer goods retail, please reach out. Same thing for consulting, anything around leadership, alignment around a strategy and building that strategy, helping your company work better. So figuring out where there might be duplication or people spending time where it's not directly connected to priorities, or anything around overlaying the HR or people plan in a really strategic way, thinking about how the world of work is changing, reach out. All of that on the consulting speaking side, would love to work with you. And then on the Be Uninterrupted side, we have a summit coming up September 27th, and that is at the Four Seasons in Toronto. There's a special GBLOC code that can be posted with this for discount, and I would love to see you there. Check it out. Go to beuninterrupted.com and join the waitlist, so then you'll get all of the communications.
That's great. And I'm planning to be there. So hopefully we see a bit of a GBLOC contingent present for you and present at the conference. So is there anything else you'd like to share with the community before we close?
Oh, thank you, Sheila. I would just love to share that I'm so eager to make friends, to be of use to you, to be supportive. I really look forward to getting to know people in GBLOC around the world. And really, if there is anything you'd like from me or something I can do to support you personally or professionally, please reach out. Happy to do that.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to Be Uninterrupted as well as having you in the group. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Sheila.